Okay, then. Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. We have quorum, and I think Deronda started our recording. So good morning again. Thank you all. Thank you all to our special guests that have joined us today. We do have a busy agenda as usual, so we'll go ahead and jump in and get started. As a little housekeeping note, I'd just like to remind all of our board members to keep their cameras on during the meeting so that helps us when we're doing our voting. We'd just like to see your lovely faces as well. John, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for some opening remarks.
All right, thank you. And it's great to see everybody today. Great to have you join us. Special welcome to Mayor Hughes and Dr. Myers and Anthony Terliza for joining us this morning. Thank you for your time. So yeah, we do have a packed agenda and I'll get right into it. So today's meeting is organized a little bit differently than normal. As usual, we're going to start with our action and voting items right up front to get that business out of the way while we have a strong quorum. As usual, we'll move into a strategic goals discussion. Today, we're going to focus in on strategic goal number 3, which is really centered on our job seekers. So that will feel familiar. We're gonna continue to follow that methodology. But what I've done that's a little bit new that I think I'm going to do for the foreseeable future is we've built in some time to talk about workforce participation. Really, every board meeting that we've had for the last 14 months, we have touched on the workforce participation challenges that we've got. Obviously, every single employer in our region is short-staffed and they're suffering and they're hurting. And we've tried over the last 14 months to be very responsive to that. And anyway, it's not going anywhere. And we have been spending a lot of time as an organization working on this issue. So I thought what I would do, today and going forward is we'll carve out time to talk about the specific workforce participation initiatives and things that we are trying to do as a board to serve our region. So that said, we always have a packed agenda. We're still going to have a packed agenda, but we are going to finish on time, I promise, and we're going to have time for comments and questions from everybody because we like to get your feedback. What I'll finish up on is you're going to buckle up because you're going to get a lot of data today, and that I think you'll find interesting and helpful, but also might cause you to have questions and want to kind of engage and help us on this. So with that, I will turn it back over to our chairman or chairwoman, and we'll go to the next agenda item.
Okay, our first order of business is to approve the June 9th board minutes. Everyone should have read and reviewed the minutes already. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
I make the motion to approve. Beverly Ford.
Thank you, Beverly. Have a second?
I'll second. This is Cassie Seltzer.
Thank you, Cassie. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, thank you. Moving on to our next item is I'm going to give you some updates from our executive committee meeting from July 14th. We had several items to go over, and the first item was just some general updates from John. We talked about the career team executive director role, the MCM, CPA external audit, and the state comprehensive compliance monitoring. And then we moved on down to the PY22 budget planning. John shared an update on that planning budget and all the funding allocations for that PY22. Goal is to provide the budget for the LEOs and that board approval by the end of the summer. So just be ready for that. He also gave us an update on the reentry grant. During our June board meeting, he informed the board that we would only have $69,000 of that 112 required for those 2 reentry positions. And after some calls with the workforce development cabinet, the workforce development board was awarded that full 112,000, and that allowed us to retain both Aaron and Jana for the next 12 months. So that was great news. John also went over the OSO contract renewal with us, and the executive team approved a motion to renew that one-stop operator contract for the next year at $80,000. We also discussed the revamp of the KCC customer service process. John gave that executive committee the update on the efforts underway to improve the customer service processes in the Kentucky Career Centers. So we'll look for more updates on that along the way. Also, we discussed the Kentucky Career Center certification. He provided our executive team with a brief update on that certification process. It's a requirement that takes place every 3 years. And John will discuss that more in our next agenda item. And we'll go over the results of the certification in more detail. And the last thing that we discussed in our executive meeting was the workforce participation task force concept. John provided us updates on that informal working group that has been meeting. And that group has been identifying solutions on the ongoing labor shortages in our region. And that group is called the Workforce Participation Working Group. They have been meeting every 3 weeks to review data and explore innovative ideas. And in April, there was a suggestion to move that from just a part-time effort into more of a full-time model. And so WKU stepped forward, the City of Bowling Green and Warren County, they offered to contribute funding toward a full-time position under the supervision of the Workforce Development Board. So John then asked permission from the executive team to put $20,000 toward that position as well. But the executive team felt like we needed more time to discuss this request and asked John to ensure that all of our LEOs, all of our elected officials were aware of this new position, make sure that was communicated correctly and fully, and gave those other LEOs an opportunity to contribute to it as well. So we'll discuss that as well in our agenda today. But that's all I have from the executive committee. And John, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Okay, all right. So, on to agenda item number 5, the Kentucky Career Center certification. And so if you can go forward a slide, Brian. Let's build that out a little bit. Okay, so in June, you can build it again. In June, I teed this up at our board meeting. Again, we have to certify our Kentucky Career Center once every 3 years, and this is really all about making sure that that we're delivering good quality service, and that our processes are straight, and that what we're doing is kind of aligned, strategically with our education partners, with our economic development partners, and so forth. So this is kind of an overview of what it is and why we do it and the frequency of it. If you can go forward a slide, Brian. And so the way we ran this process is that we formed a 4-person team, and that team was made up of somebody from our business community. We had a board member. We had to have somebody from outside the region. So we had a gentleman come in from another workforce area, and then we involved one of our community partners. And so you can see there on the bottom, in the middle, who the different folks were. So from our board, we had TJ Shockley Hunt. She was the review team leader, and she got paired up with Renetta Douglas, who is our Kentucky Career Center manager. Kenzie Jessup from Crowd South paired up with Jake Brown on our team. Heath Ray from Community Action teamed up with Matt Bacon, and Carter Dyson from the Lincoln Trail Workforce area paired up with Frank Garabato. And there were 4. There's really the review team looked at 4 different areas: career management, business services, job seeker services, and strategic planning. And I'll turn it over to TJ, but that team came in and they broke out and they did spent a couple hours in our career center going through and looking at those different areas. So TJ, I'll turn it over to you to talk about the team effort that you had on this.
Good morning, and I'm so sorry. For some reason, I got hung in the waiting room for the Zoom, and I could not get in. So, thank you for getting me into the meeting, and I apologize. So yes, we met as the review team, and I just got on, so I'm not quite sure what John said. We met as a review team, and we looked at various areas throughout the Career Center. We looked at things like center management, business and employer services, job seeker services, and strategic planning and innovation for effectiveness, efficiency, facilities management, facilities themselves, etc. And I felt like we spent quite a bit of time in due diligence looking at everything at the center as a review team. I feel like it was a consensus of the entire team that it was a really great visit. We got to learn a lot of new things that are going on at the center. It was really evident to the review team that there had been a lot of thought put into flow for customers and more efficiency. So there's been a lot of moving around in the Career Center, changing things up to make it easier for the customers to flow through the center and to obtain services as needed. So all in all, the entire review team was very, very impressed by what we've seen. So we did have a few suggestions, although nothing that would have prevented us for recommending to the board that we recertify as a comprehensive one-stop for the next 3 years. So under center management, the reviewer suggested that we do a sign-in log, that be implemented for in partners, whether they're mandated or otherwise, who are providing services within the center. Under the business and employer services, the reviewer made a technical recommendation about the certification tool itself. And then for job seeker services, the reviewer noted a need for staff training. We were really happy to find out, the reviewer was, that everybody knew about the language line, but we have a lot of new staff members at the Career Center, so they weren't necessarily well versed in how to utilize the language line. And so it was recommended that we try to do a staff training on that. And you know, I didn't feel like that was out of the ordinary because we did have a lot of new staff. So that will be great to get some additional training on the language line. And under strategic planning, the reviewer suggested adding the words "at minimum" to goals outlined in our strategic goals section. An example, instead of saying increase by 10%, it would be increased by a minimum of 10%. And that was just literally a suggestion on verbiage in that strategic planning as we're setting goals. So I guess I was going to ask really quick if anybody had any questions around the review team or anything that I shared so far.
And if Frank is on, Frank Garabata, who's our one-stop operator, and Frank, would you like to add any color commentary to this?
John, I don't believe he joined.
Okay, that's a no.
I think the staff was very helpful throughout the entire process to all the review team. I did feel like we had some good expertise on the review team to have a look at all the different areas. And all in all, we all came to the consensus that we had a really good visit, and we've seen a lot of good things and a lot of good progress taking place. So if nobody has any further comments, I would like to recommend to the board that we certify the Kentucky Career Center here in Bowling Green as a comprehensive one-stop center for the next 3 years. And then if approved, and the board's going to notify the KWIB, the Kentucky Workforce Investment Board, via a formal letter regarding the decision.
If we're ready for a motion, Robin will make a motion that we certify the career center as a comprehensive one-stop center.
Thank you, Robin. Is there a second?
Beverly will second.
Thank you, Beverly. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much, TJ, for your update. And move on down to the next agenda item, which is the financial report.
Good morning. I hope all is well. So here's the financials for our full year financial. Our fiscal year ended as June 30th, 2022. We are undergoing an audit procedure, pretty much 90% done. They were in the office for a week and a half. Last week, we provided all the information. We haven't heard anything negative or concerning to the financials. So hopefully everything is good. So this is the financial that were presented to the auditors in different format, but this is for board to review as well. We all know that our all contracts are the cost reimbursement contracts. So we only get the money once we spend the money as well. So the annual budget, when we started last year, we thought the $2.4 or $2.5 million that we would run the year, but then we got additional funding during the year as well. So therefore, the actual spending or total revenue is 3.6, which is more than $1 million. But then we all know we got a significant grant for the tornado grant that happened during the year. And that was not foreseen when we did the budget process. So it's favorable into the revenue, but I thought that probably I should share with you all as well. The sub-grantee at the same thing, even though the lower amount, but they got the share for the additional funding as well. Therefore, their spending is negative, but it's not negative because it's a good thing that we got more money. We passed on to the sub-team and other sub-grantees, and they spent the money as well. We also got a new grant for the project heavy equipment, 100% reimbursement there as well for 364. That's the money here. And then for the board expenditures, definitely we can see that we both did a good job in saving the funding. Maybe the probably the actual expenses were close to $1,047,701. The board, the ultimate expense was $973 and $912. That gave a favorable expense variance for $73,000. So that was a good thing. So all in all, we spent $3.6 million. We booked $3.6 million, and so we will be collecting some of the part of this in few days from the state, and after that, whatever we spent, we are able to collect from the state as well, and did not leave any VOR dollars on the table. So that's I know there was a concern from the board a couple years back, but for the last 2 years, the program team is managing very well, and that the way it's all set up, that the team did not leave any money on the table. So that's a very good thing. Any questions, any concerns?
Is there any discussion on the financial report? Can I get a motion to approve?
This is TJ, I'll approve.
Thank you, TJ. Do you
Make
have a
the motion.
second?
Robin will second.
Thank you, Robin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is our strategic goals.
Thank you.
All right, and good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Becker. If you don't know me or I haven't had a chance to meet you, let me just say we miss seeing all of you still in person. So there's some board staff here in the room that you can kind of see, and career team, but we miss being able to get with you, and we still are obviously cognizant of COVID. It has been some of us that have been able to dodge it this whole time this summer, so we know it is still a very real and negatively impacting thing. So we want to be careful about that. But we still will remain hybrid for the time being. So yeah, going into our strategic goals, the strategic goal number one, our ability to serve employers. Just a quick overview of our efforts here. We have been continuing to make progress. We continue to implement a once a month job fair strategy that we call Talent Tuesdays. We had it just this past week in Edmonson County. And in addition to that, we are bringing hiring events back to the Career Center. Those have been happening sort of sporadically, but we continue to have a lot of employer visits and engagements. We're fully staffed with our board staff, our career team, business service reps. So gives us a lot more ability to get out and meet in person with employers. And we're trying to collect a lot better information from them to be able to give that information back to our job seekers. So we continue to, in that vein with the purple block there, post jobs at the Kentucky Career Center. As TJ mentioned, we've taken, it's been a pretty heavy undertaking to switch our Career Center from being an unemployment insurance office exclusively to being something that is designed to stop people in their tracks and hit them over the head with about 18 different job opportunities that they could potentially have. But that's it. We're really trying to get, visual things represented there in the center, and print and things at the fingertips of all of our career advising staff. We're also trying to take those job opportunities that we're learning about and sharing them with the wider community and other partners that provide job opportunities, or I should say employment services. And you'll hear us talk more about that in a moment. And then there's, again, been a lot of work and development with the workforce participation work group and its ability to serve these employer needs. So any questions real quick about, I shouldn't say real quick, we'll have time at the end as well, but any questions over any of those items?
Can I comment what kind of turnout in Edmonson County?
What kind of turnout in Edmonson County? So I think we have Jake Brown. We might need to pass you a mic so you can, yeah.
So business-wise, we did have 5 quality companies there from various sectors. Each of them brought some different things to the table, but each of them had a number of jobs available. So that was a positive benefit. With regard to job seekers, we did have 4 to 5 quality job seekers that were interested in that as well, and a number of folks who were able to refer their friends and family to that as well. So they took a lot of applications home and those sorts of things. And then third, we were also able to get some social media posts going with some of the businesses that were there. So hopefully, Leslie, in the next couple of days, we'll be able to put out some quality videos with some of the businesses that we worked with, talking about the jobs that they had open, where you could apply, and some of the characteristics they were looking for from job seekers. So overall, it was a very positive event.
I'll add some commentary to that too. We've been doing these Talent Tuesdays for a number of months now. And what we've picked up on, some of them are well attended, some of them are not well attended by job seekers. The ones that are well attended, typically what we see is we have a lot of community partners in that county that are sharing and promoting and drumming up and pushing people in that direction. And so when we have a lot of engagement from the partners in that county, we get good turnout. When it's when they're subdued or kind of flat, you don't have a lot of partner assistance, then we get low turnout. And so that's kind of, I think, the key to success that we've picked up on. And so we're going to continue to do these. We're trying to get out and touch every county and help every county throughout the year. But part of our strategy going forward is we really got to inspire, motivate, encourage, cajole our partners in that county to promote this thing, share it, let people know, so that we can get good turnout. So anyway, that's my feedback on Talent Tuesdays. Thank you, Chad, for that question.
Yeah, and I'll add, and Chad, and a lot of the partners do the work in the greater, 10 county area now. There's just not a lot of activity in some of these counties for a combo kind of job fair, right? There might be companies running job fairs, but a multi-company job fair, we're not aware and tracking very many or if any in Edmonson County. So that was our attempt to try to create one and do one. That's what that exactly is trying to do, is to drum up support and attention, interest, giving targeted, I should say, emphasis to the businesses in those counties and to job seekers in those counties. But of course, we would allow and have allowed businesses from outside those counties to participate on the hiring side, and then of course job seekers from outside the county to come in as well. But we're looking at trying to serve just within the county primarily. Okay, advance the slide here. So with strategic goal number 2, this was our big focus at the last board meeting. But just again, quick update: we continue to have an overall job fair hiring event strategy. So I know the career team is in the midst of nailing down the dates and the locations for our SCWDB on-campus job fairs that we kicked off this past spring that were very, very successful, very well attended, and we want to continue that momentum. The Hart County CDL cohort that happened, we're continuing to follow the progress on the students that went through that. Of course, thinking about how for the future, getting ready for the EV battery plants coming into our region, and what that's going to look like as far as career development, career pathways, training associated with those for youth and for adult job seekers. Of course, we've been supporting the Commonwealth Coders program fall recruitment as we do all training provider program recruitment. And then, of course, apprenticeship setup and supporting efforts there. With the heavy equipment pathway, again, we've been talking about this almost every board meeting, but we do feel like we've made progress on strategic goal number 2. But we did want to say, did you see us in the news? Specifically, did you see John in the news? So we did get coverage. It was announced through a press conference, this heavy equipment operation training program being available starting here in Warren County for youth, and then with SCWDB's ability through Workforce Solution to offer it for adults. So, I mean, just poll the room. Anybody see this, catch this? This is show up on your radar here a couple days ago. Okay, maybe that's a verbal thumbs up. I can't see everybody, but we definitely have to give Matt Bacon a lot of props. You would have seen that in the stories and the interviews that were done. So, okay, thank you, Beverly. And so, he literally went and picked up the equipment. So delivering it right there to the door of the Area Technology Center. So just to remind everybody, again, this was a special grant that workforce boards only can apply to through a special funding allotment that the governor sets up each year. And this is also the same allotment that we were able to secure Aaron and Janice's positions and previously Matt's position with the board. And so this was a much more significant ask than we normally make. And it took several months of some back and forth negotiations, but we were able to, like I said, literally deliver those. And so Robin says, thanks for the determination and hard work on this, Matt. So yeah, we definitely want to give Matt plenty of props on that. Yeah. All right. Any other comments, questions on strategic goal number 2 before we jump into 3, which will be our focus? Okay, so as it turns out, strategic goal number 3 is about increasing workforce participation. But all of our efforts are really wrapping around this one. And so this one sort of bleeds over into all of our efforts going on with the board. But we continue to have a tremendous outreach and recruitment efforts through our focused population programming. We'll have a quick update on some numbers served with that here in a moment. Again, you'll hear us talk, and John will go into more detail about this participation work group and the development of that full-time position that we have. We're also collecting a lot better information on job seekers because, we're in a lot of meetings, a lot of think tanks, so to speak, but the voice of the job seeker, the voice of the person who's not working, we need to be able to bring that to bear on decisions that we have and strategies that we're doing. Part of that has been resume workshops. So we've been doing that now throughout the summer. We've been offering those in other counties as well in combo with the Talent Tuesdays. We've also continued to plan out what our expanded outreach and going after certain pipelines will look like throughout the region, where people don't have to come to a Kentucky Career Center to access our services. And then we've also been working, I think we mentioned the last board meeting as well, with a third-party group to try to develop some welcoming criteria for employers to sort of certify, endorse that they have practices and criteria in place and that are being met that can make themselves more appealing to certain types of job seekers, especially the ones that we're serving here through the board. So again, we feel like we've had good movement on this area here in the last quarter and anticipate that continuing to move forward. And I'll turn it over to John, because the first thing we want to highlight and show is how WIOA dollars were spent here in the last 12 months.
All right, thank you, Brian. All right, so let me just kind of start with, last summer, for the first time, I went on a county by county road trip, and I sat down with every judge executive and whoever they invited, and I laid out these down to the penny, every WIOA dollar and national dislocated worker dollar we spent in their county, and showed them, showed them how that compared to the rest of the counties. I'm going to do that again this summer. This is kind of the first, this is kind of the lead into it. What this slide is showing is our overall spending. It's not, it's a little bit higher level than what I was showing last year, but I wanted to keep it high level for today. And so you can kind of see down on the left side all the different counties in the PY21 WIOA column. That's how that, our WIOA funding line, that's how much I spent in each of our counties in WIOA for a total of nearly $308,000. Down in the middle, that's the national dislocated worker money. And that's we really have had two in play during this time period. And the time periods are at the top. Last July through this June, we had the COVID grant money that was in play, and then after the December tornadoes, we received another national dislocated worker grant for that, for the tornado. So right now I've got two in play, but you can see that we spent nearly $490,000 across the region in this time period. Just want to say, we normally don't have national dislocated worker money. It's not something we normally have. And so, I mean, I think a year from now, the COVID grant will be gone. We'll still have some remaining tornado grant, but under normal circumstances, you normally just have WIOA and that's it. And so right now we've got a lot of money right now. And so you can see we spent, kind of the total spent in each county, almost $800,000 worth in the last year. And this money, I want to say, I mean, some of this money is used for what we would call training, ITAs, individual training counts, but this funded training. This is funded internships. This is funded OJTs, on the job training, and this is funded supportive services. Supportive services are things that we can do. We can buy uniforms, we can reimburse mileage, we can reimburse some childcare. Those are things that we can do with supportive service dollars with these grants. And so when you see these figures, that's inclusive of all those different types of services: training, internship, OJT, supportive service. So that's the count. That's what it looks like by county. This second slide is what it looks like we're really zooming in on the training that we offer. I'm not showing you WEX. I'm not showing you internships. I'm not showing you OJT money. I'm not showing you supportive service money. This is just what we did in terms of training. You can see there, predominantly or overwhelmingly, a lot of CDL. 56 folks were funded through CDL. Unfortunately, we had 8 folks not complete, and there's a variety of reasons for that. We've got 6 that are still in training, 15 that have completed training, that are seeking employment, and then we've got 27. So far out of that 56, we've got 27 positive employment outcomes. If you look at that 27, and you look over two columns over, the average, we're seeing the average wage of the folks getting a CDL. Most of them are driving locally. They're easily at $50,000 starting. So if you multiply that 27 by the 50,000, that's a $1.35 million economic impact. That's what these folks are going to make. And that's what comes into our economy. If you look at the 6 in training and the 6 that are seeking employment, that's a total of 21. That's in that blue text there. If all of those folks go to work, there's going to be another $1 million in economic impact if every one of them go to work. And so that's how you look at this slide. But so 56 CDL, it looks like 23 in a healthcare field, 17 coding, and we did 4 forklift operators for a total of 100 people. So let me go to the next slide, and then I'll pause for questions, and we can go back to any questions anybody might have. Here's the last one I'll show you. I realized last year you can't just look at the money we spent on participants. If that's all you're doing, then you're looking through a soda straw of what we do. And so we also have been very intentional about capturing our staff engagement in each county. And so every month our staff gets together and we go back over our data and we update our data. And so what this is showing you is, we'll look at Allen County, for example. Our whole, but among everybody on our staff, there were 81 either visits or engagements that centered on Allen County. Total of 154 and a half staff hours for Allen County. And then, we take those staff hours, we break it out, we kind of buy all the different staff members we've got. And, that the value of those 154 hours was $5,328. And so, I think that's a little bit different way to look at what we do, but we do want to, portray that we are getting out and touching every county and working in every county and putting hours into each county, trying to make a difference. And so you can kind of see the hours and you can see the kind of the overall staff value of that work. So I'll pause there. That's a lot of information. It's a lot of data, a lot of numbers. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to present this actually to all the judge executives tomorrow, and my offer to them is going to be that I'm coming to your county, and I'm coming to you, and we're going to look at your county, look at these same numbers, but we're really going to drill down to what we did in each county. And just like I did last year, we're going to do it again this year. That was really a really worthwhile effort. I think every county judge executive was appreciative of that report. So we're going to do it again. So I'll pause there to see if there's any comments or feedback from the board.
Hey, John, this is Rebecca. I just have a quick question about your first slide. So 45% of the folks that you trained are working right now. Is there a benchmark for workforce commissions across each of our regions or, around this market area? So that if we employed $2 million in economic impact, what is a good benchmark for this kind of training and folks going to work in impacting our economy?
Jessica, do you know what the state, can you look up the state benchmark? The performance measure on this? So there are the state mandates performance measures, and we'll look up the specific percentage. I want to say it might be in the 70s, but 70% range. But we've been well above the state benchmark. We've been in the 80 to 90% range in terms of placements or positive employment outcomes. What happens when we enroll somebody is that, and we qualify them for WIOA and we put them through this training. By law, we have to follow them for a year. And so there's monthly check-ins, and we continue to check in with them, work with them, encourage them, assist them, put them onto job opportunities, pester them, if you will. And then what happens also is because they've been enrolled in the system and we've got all this information on them. Second quarter after they've completed the training and fourth quarter after they've completed the training, what the government does is they run that person's social security number through the IRS to see if that person if there's been any wages paid or an employer's paid in for that person. So that's how they, if we're not capturing it locally through our career advisors, there's another means to capture employment outcomes second and fourth quarter after training. Because if the government is seeing that an employer is paying taxes on that person or paying in, then we'll know that there's an employment outcome. So so Rebecca, I'll get you the specific number, but yeah, there are benchmarks and there's performance measures that we're expected to meet. And we have the last few years we have consistently exceeded the state performance.
I guess, and I'll save this for a different time so we don't take up time, but I really don't get the 70% when you have 45% employed. What is the other thing? First of all, I'd be interested in a comparison to the benchmarks of other workforce commissions as well as the state. But when you follow the 26 people who don't have employment but are seeking it or could be an internship, how do you follow up on them also? So how many fall out and don't get a job? So we see this report, but then how do we follow up and see that out of the 26, they went through this training and never got a job. And I'm not asking you to answer that right now. I'm just saying, think about it in maybe in another report, you can bring that forward.
Sure. Okay, so we'll capture that and we'll follow up with you on that. I will say CDL is a little bit skewed because one of the things that we did this year, that June 30th is the end of our fiscal year. And we actually ran 3 CDL cohorts in June, one in Hart County, one in Barron County, one in Simpson County. And so you're seeing a lot of folks that are not necessarily employed yet because they just completed in the last month or so. So we've got some time. I mean, we're going to get positive employment outcomes out of that group. I'm certain of it. We just had a huge surge in June and pushed a lot of people through. So we still, it's a little bit heavy on the not employed yet. But I think it'll come.
Hey, John, this is Anthony Shirley from Career Team. I don't know if this is time and place, but I can give a minute or two on the color of this so it can make a little bit of sense if you'd like me to. I could table it. Okay. So I understand what you were saying about the confusion between the 45 and the 70. So I'll just explain that. So in a WIOA program, when you exit the program, meaning you finish some sort of service and you exit out of the program, the 70% or the 80% number that's being achieved, that is second quarter after they leave the program or fourth quarter after they leave the program. So those are two different metrics. Then there's a credential rate metric. So we put someone through training, like John had said, they went through the CDL. Let's say we put 10 people through, 8 went through, then okay, 80%, then that's great. What they're reporting on is 45% of those that went into a credential have now been employed. So they roll up into the employed number. So it's really kind of like the cadence of when the classes are. So when you're looking at the federal or the state numbers, they still have to exit out of the program. So they have some time to do that. So if we just had 50 people enrolled in the month of June for some program, then you're going to have 50 people on your denominator on that number. So it's going to look like, hey, what are you doing with all of these people? Well, they didn't get hired on day one, right? So all to say, like the numbers are trailing, but generally this region and, from the WIOA Title I provider career team, we've obtained our numbers, but it's just a lot of different ways to report them. So it's just like the funky way to talk through it. But I think what John is doing is digging deeper into what's actually happening in real time, which is counter to what some of the numbers that you would see reported by the state. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, and we've had a question come in from Summer Morgan. And so what's the average time and financial commitment for an adult seeking a CDL? And so the rate has changed recently by one training provider. I can't speak to the other one for both. Okay. So it was below 4,000. Now it's going to be over 4,000 per person.
Yeah. So Sky CTC has just bumped up the rate to $4,200. It's a 4-week class. So in 4 weeks you get a CDL, $4,200 through Sky CTC. Lake Cumberland CDL school in Barron County has just bumped from $3,800 for a 4-week program to $5,000 for a 4-week program. And so that is just, they've just notified us of that change.
So it is a 4-week training program, Summer, but that doesn't mean, and Sky CTC operates every month. What Lake Cumberland's, how often do they operate?
It's about.
It's almost every,
month.
yeah.
It's a little bit different.
But there's sometimes a wait list, so it doesn't mean if we
Sometimes they overlap.
signed up in late July, we're gonna get in the August cohort. Yeah. A good question.
I'd like to add something for economic impact on those two. So recently, just out of Hart County was our first iteration of a high school CDL cohort. One of those completers of that program is now working with Ford Blue Oval, is making $128 an hour. We've got another one who was offered employment down in Mississippi for $210,000 a year to be an over-the-road truck driver. So these are kids we met with that didn't even know if they wanted to complete high school, and they 8 weeks later they're in jobs that are paying better than probably most of ours do, with one credential. In addition to Sky CTC, I'd like to compliment them. They've recently added an option for us to where participants can get the hazmat certification right along with their CDL at the same time. Now the difference in pay there is about $10,000 a year, starting out from just CDL to CDL plus hazmat. So that economic impact is probably actually low.
Yeah, it is low. We're being very conservative on those numbers.
All right, well, we'll jump into now to just an update on some of our outreach efforts with our focused population programming. And so I'm actually going to turn things over to Miss Anna Maria San Cristobal. So let me move the camera thing here so she can tell you about her work with New Americans.
Yes. Hello, good morning, happy Thursday. My name is Ana San Cristobal. I'm a New American Workforce Navigator for South Central Workforce Board. I have been working in this position for close to 5 months, since March 21st. And in this time, we have had 54 engagement with community group and leaders. We work in different communities, especially in Warren County, like Afghan community, African, Arab, Bosnian, Burmese, and Hispano-American community. We had 175 individual personally engaged, is 175 New American participants, and we have met and we had 105 positive employment outcome in this time. Is 105 positive employment in New American job seekers participants. And I would like to, one of these cases is Sandar Nouri, and I would like to share his story with you. And to be sure not forget any detail, I will read his story. Sandar is from Afghanistan. He was born in Partika, Afghanistan, as the elder son of Saeed and Nijari Nouri. He had to leave his country, escaping the war in August 22nd, 2021, with his family arriving in Bowling Green, Kentucky on the 9th of December 10th. Do you remember what happened at December 10th at 9? It was especially the tornado night. His social worker gave him the New American Workforce Navigator business card, my business card, and he decided to contact his office. I did an intake with him and his family, and I created an individualized career development plan for him. Sandar is older than 18 years old, but has the opportunity to earn a high school diploma by staying enrolled in high school, and encourage him to finish his high school degree, and he will do so in May in Geo High School in Warren County. I refer him to Career Age workshop, where he was able to create his resume for the first time. This is the place where we took this picture, and you can see on the screen, and believe me, he was so happy. It was absolutely a new experience for him. And I helped him apply for and secure a job at the company in Simpson County. And he plans to continue to work there while finishing his high school degree. He need to work to help his family, which is formed up for his parent and 5 siblings. His father being pre-literate in English and in his own language. I learned of many of his family members' needs, and I made refer for them to receive services. I also helped several other members of his family, including his father, obtain a job, all at the same company as Sandar. I plan to continue, of course, to work with Sandar and other upperclassmen at area high school by organizing a group of education partners who can regularly present information for future education opportunities, training opportunities, and financial support to pursue career options in our region. That is one of our cases. That is a big case for us. Thank you.
One example of many.
One example of many, and there's another complicated detail to him, which is where when he came into the States back in the fall and early winter, they got his birth date wrong. And so to the employer, he actually looked younger than he actually was because of the stamp on there, but Anna had to convince the employer, no, this is not accurate. He actually is older. He is in high school, but when you're a refugee here in the school system, they allow you to stay up until you turn 21, just like they do other types of youth that need longer times. But you know, telling an employer he's not just a high school student, he's actually older than high school. So that was battle number one. And then getting his dad, who's not literate in his own language and literate in English, a job, and they're all able to work together. It's been outstanding. So yeah.
That was a nice case because when he left Afghanistan, the immigration there, put her year birthday in 2005.
Yeah,
And
so it was
officially,
actually a mistake in
and
Afghanistan.
when he arrived here, the only option that gave the immigration office for him is wait for when you get your citizenship. So it's take a time, and he needed to start working. So and try to contact different companies, and one of them say no problem. Is he speak English and he's a good employee, so we can continue with his process.
Yeah, so it's career services and advocacy, which is also what we see with our new our reentry and justice involved population. So just a quick update there. We don't have pictures of Aaron and Jana working with job seekers. I'm sure they might get those from time to time, but Aaron does a lot of public speaking on this topic, and so I tend to have more pictures, and we tend to put more on Facebook pages and social media of those. But there's also been over 100 individuals engaged through presentations, and nearly 200 year to date. Probably that's higher than 200 out of this board meeting that have been engaged personally, and dozens of them positive employment outcomes that are known that we're tracking. What's also interesting with this population is they often come to us when they get on our radar. We have to refer them to some other services first. So it's sort of a cycle of getting them connected where they most need help, and trying to incentivize workforce participation as well. And so any questions about strategic goals number 3? We'll have, again, more time for discussion here towards the end, but otherwise we'll jump into strategic goal number 4.
Okay, yeah, let's go forward a slide. So strategic goal number 4 is really kind of our, again, it's our kind of internal compliance and making sure we're, being good stewards of the federal dollars that we get to serve this community. So, big things that have been on our plate with regard to strategic goal number 4, working through the budget, the budget process. We get our budget from the state that trickles in over many, many months. It's not clean, it's messy, it's aggravating, but it's a process. So we've been working through that. We've just started to get some of the numbers in, but they're anyway, it's messy. Kentucky Career Center certification, we've talked about that. Fiscal and programmatic monitoring, I'll talk more about. I'm going to talk more about all these on the next slide. So let's just go forward. There's our assessment. Okay, so again, in terms of the budget, in terms of the WIOA budget, there's 3 sub lines of funding that make up WIOA: youth funding, adult funding, dislocated worker funding. So we've gotten our youth funding. The adult and dislocated worker funding actually came in, some numbers came in last night, but it's the first 25, it's 25%, and then we'll get the remaining 75% number for each in October. So, so we're going to have to work off the 25% for a few months and then see what we get, what that other 75% looks like when we get it in October. And last year, that sounds simple, but it's not. Last year, we got the 25%. And so we thought we knew what 75% was going to be, but then it was a whole different number that we got last October. So it's government money. It's a weird animal. But despite all that, we're going to do our best to build out a budget, present it to the LEOs, and also present it to the board, just as a reminder, the way that WIOA and the law is set up. Our judge executives actually have responsibility for fiscal oversight of the workforce board. So they actually approve the budget. They're the approvers of the budget, whereas the board, you get to see what they approve. And you can also help shape it as well. Memorandum of agreement and infrastructure funding agreement. These are technical things that we have to do periodically with the state. We have a memorandum of agreement that's drafted up and ready to go, but we are waiting to complete our infrastructure funding agreement. What that is that the infrastructure funding agreement is an agreement that really kind of covers the who does what and who pays what inside of the Kentucky Career Centers. So inside a Kentucky Career Center, you usually have 2 or more partners. And so technically anybody that's a partner in that building is using some level of square footage and is using some amount of the shared space should be paying some amount of rent. And the infrastructure funding agreement codifies that arrangement. And so we're working through that right now. One of the things I've got going on that I'm working with Frank on is as we've reorganized inside the Kentucky Career Center, we have submitted up kind of the new square footage that our staff is using. And I feel like based on the reorganization, we're going to be able to drive down some of our rent costs. So we're going to work through that. The other thing that's weird about it is the state owns the building, so the state actually controls a lot of the information that I have to put on that document. The state knows how much they spent in maintenance. The state knows how much the electricity for the building is. The state knows how much it costs the contractor, the cleaning crew is. I have to put all those on the document, but I don't have the numbers. So I'm trying to work with those folks to get those numbers, to put it all in the document so they can approve the document. Fiscal and programmatic monitoring. Again, we've been reporting on this every board meeting for a while now. 2 a year, one by the state, one externally. The state monitoring started in February, and it's basically a 3-phase process. We're in the 3rd and final phase of this thing. The state presented to us their final findings, and that was very minimal. We were able to respond to those final findings. So we sent the response back up, and then what will happen, and with a little bit more supporting documentation. And then we will get a final report from the state saying, here's what we determined. But really, based on where we're in really good shape on this thing. We're in really good shape on the state monitoring. So I feel good about that. The external monitoring, again, we're using MCM CPAs out of Lexington again this year. So far they've completed 2 on-site visits, one in June and one in July and one last week. And really, I'm getting really good positive feedback from those folks. They will wrap up the audit either late August, early September. And then what we will do is MCM will come down and they will do a very formal, detailed presentation to the audit committee. And then they will also come back and present to the full board at our October meeting, but that will be a scaled down Cliff Notes version, just so, because we have a lot of other things to get to in the board meeting. That'll be the Cliff Notes version back to the board to see the results. And that's a methodology we followed for the last few years in terms of timing and how we roll it out and present it. So we're going to do that again this year. Again, both the state and the external audit. I'm getting positive feedback from the auditors. And so I think we're in good shape and we'll continue to be in good shape, but I'll reserve judgment until the final reports come in. Okay, next. Okay, so that really kind of completed the strategic goals piece. That's normally where we have wrapped up this thing and gone into a question and answer session, but the public comment session. But like I said up front, workforce participation has really dominated and consumed a lot of our staff energy over the last year, and particularly over the last few months. I mean, we are hearing constantly from employers, from chambers, from industrial authorities, help, help, help. We need help. This company needs 40 people. This company needs 60 people. This company needs a dozen people. And we don't have a glass chest that we can break. We don't have a chest that we can open up and just deliver people. Although sometimes that people think that we might. So and we've been reporting on this for a while. We started this informal workforce participation working group formed in early December. And it was really Judge Buchanan who asked to get a group of folks together to start looking at this. And then it kind of quickly kind of turned into this workforce board kind of running that meeting. And so we've kind of continued that meeting. The group is comprised of, our staff at the board, WKU's provost, Sky CTC, the president, and Dr. Myers, our regular attendees, Bowling Green Chamber, Jeff Meisel from the city of Bowling Green, the Convention and Visitors Bureau is a pretty regular attendee. The WKU Innovation Lab, Buddy Steen is a participant, and we've had both school superintendents come in. They're there fairly regularly, and the International Center. And so the group's been meeting every 3 weeks, and really it's very informal. There's a lot of just ideas and discussion kind of thrown out there. But some good things have kind of come out of that, so and I'll key in on the right side. I'll key in on the things that really have been put on our plate as a board that we've taken on. So one of the things that came out of that, those early discussions was, hey, we need somebody at Fort Campbell. We gotta tap into all these service members getting out of the military. And so that, as we reported, the city and the county ponied up money and gave it to the board. And then we were able to hire Mike Daly, who's on our call today. And Mike's at Fort Campbell in the transition center Monday through Friday, talking to soldiers, talking about the opportunities we have in South Central Kentucky and trying to steer them our direction. So that was definitely a positive that came for us, because we've never had a full-time presence there. We've never had a full-time emphasis there. Now we do. And it's paying dividends. Refined data collection. So, early on, there was a lot of questions about why aren't people working? And so, as Brian and I were kind of working through, hey, we've got to get the Career Center out of the Career Center closed for a long time due to COVID. When it reopened back up, it was heavily focused on unemployment, rightfully so. But our whole staff, over a 2-year period, our whole staff, that it was really kind of unemployment insurance focused. And it still is somewhat, that subsided a bit, but we had to restructure that thing, and we had to get more employment conversations going in the building. If you come into the building, you've got to talk to somebody about employment. You have to. And so, and as part of that, we also had to collect some data on people. We had to figure out who's coming in, why are they coming in? Because not everybody, and you're going to see some data in a few minutes, not everybody coming into that building is unemployed. They might be there for an unemployment insurance appointment, but that doesn't mean they're unemployed. And we also had to figure out what's holding you back from employment. Is it transportation? Is it childcare? Is it something else? You can't really develop solutions unless you really know what the problem is. And so anyway, we've really kind of honed in on data collection for anybody that comes into the building, and you'll see some of those numbers that we've collected. Brian mentioned this a little bit ago. One of the ideas is how do we help employers brand themselves as being military friendly or new American friendly? What does that even mean? Anybody can say it, but does it mean anything? And are you really? And so we have partnered with the Kentucky Center for Leadership, and we've been meeting with them over the last couple of months. And we're working on what we're calling a welcoming workplace certification. And it's really just, we're trying to lay out some criteria that employers can look at and adopt to say, yeah, I am a welcoming workplace for new Americans, or I am a welcoming workforce for veterans because I'm doing these things. We're kind of showing them a set of criteria that they can adopt and do. And if they do those things, then they could be branded as a welcoming workplace. So we're working through that. And that's a very muddy, messy sausage making process, but it's good. And I think it's going to be good when we roll it out. Hopefully we're going to get it rolled out this fall. And then lastly, and I'll speak to more of this in a little bit, but, now there's money being put on the table by Western Kentucky, the city of Bowling Green, and Warren County. The idea is we've been meeting every 3 weeks. We've been tackling this kind of ad hoc on a part-time basis. And even though some good things have come about, we really need to get serious about this and get a full-time position and really make this a full-time dedicated position and evolve this thing from an occasional working group to a full-up task force that's over in the WKU Innovation Center. And so again, I'll lay more of this out here in a minute, but Brian, I'm going to turn it back over to Brian. He's going to go through some of the data we've collected and some of the things that, that we've been seeing that I think you'll find interesting.
Yeah, okay, buckle up. So to give you guys a quick overview, if we think about like where we can draw numbers from and who has influence on job seekers, who's doing these services professionally, you've got our Kentucky Career Center, which has two divisions there. The Career Development Office, which is the one that's primarily been handling a lot of the unemployment insurance claims as well, vocational rehab, career team, of course, and our board staff. Outside of that, of course, more of our regional partners that dip into this area. We've got Goodwill Industries, of course, Audubon, Community Action. Then you start getting into more kind of niche areas, right? Ones that serve certain pockets, populations, life skills, that our logo there on the left is Refuge Bowling Green, serving immigrants and refugees, the International Center. We've seen child support and drug court offices, dabble in this. They usually do a lot of referring, but they have influence over job seekers and people that need to work. And then of course our post-secondary and secondary career services groups. As far as what we could call the ecosystem in the private world would be obviously employers and all the various ways that they have reached to attract people to themselves through their websites, their job fairs, TV, print, radio. You've got the big major, connector entities of Facebook, Indeed, LinkedIn. There's a whole host of other ones. I think that these are some of the more popular ones. That Bowling Green Works website that just came out late last year or early this year has been an effort in that vein of finding job opportunities online and connecting to employers. And you've got probably over 24 staffing agencies that operate in this space in our region.
Well, there are 20 just in Bowling Green,
Okay.
Warren County, and not
Okay.
and then how many ever in the other 9 counties?
Yes.
I mean, it's a lot of staffing agencies
Yeah.
out there.
And then you just see third-party recruiters. Some of those operate in an online presence, and some of these are working on behalf of companies. They might even be wearing their logos and having business cards representing the companies. So I mean that would sort of represent the private ecosystem of attracting and drawing in people to work at places. Then we've got the one that we all use as well, which is the personal one, right? Just social media and all the different ways you could find out and hear about jobs or careers. You've got word of mouth. I mean, this is a huge one. This is how we get influenced by all kinds of things in our lives, and as well as friends and family and trusted sources. In addition to this system, we also have what we would call a competing ecosystem, which is just cash, under the table side jobs, the gig economy, right? So this is some of us might have these, but this is where it's harder to know how to hook up to some of these kind of things, but these are also going on. So if you threw all these on a screen together, this is what it sort of looks like. And at the center is each of ours, and we say each of us, we all use these. We've all changed jobs or pay attention to jobs. But the bottom line, it's a lot of multiple chaotic, as John's called them, ecosystems, and individuals choose, where and when and how to engage in any of these. But the one that we sort of as a workforce board that we can have jurisdiction over is sort of these ones here more on the public professional ecosystem. And so we, within our career center, are collecting data. Career team is helping to collect data. The workforce board staff, we have asked various partners like Goodwill, Audubon, Community Action, Life Skills, International Center to give us information on job seekers that they are serving. And so this is what we're getting ready to present as information that's been collected from those. So if you have ever been a part, some of you guys on the call have seen with our community partner team meetings that we run every month. I know Roxana and Beverly are on those. We are always trying to highlight programs and opportunities for people to utilize the public ecosystem. But we've been going to partners and asking, can they report out since the beginning of the year? Can they report out month by month the number of people that they've seen that they've done intakes with, the number of people that carried over from a previous month still helping? How many people can they say they got a positive employment outcome and landed a job for? And so when the data that's coming in so far on that is showing we've got about 800 new people coming in a month, and some of this might be duplicated because they might show up at one door one month and another door another month. But on average, among these partners, and I will proudly say that among the Career Center, Career Team, and Board, we comprise the highest amount of those. And so for Mike Daly, talking in front of a group of transitioning soldiers, dozens and dozens of those every month, to Aaron getting out and talking to a recovery center, to Anna doing the engagements. I mean, there was almost 400 people just between the reentry and the New American programming that we've had. And our New American programming has only been out since, the spring. So it's not even a full year yet, but this is on average what we're seeing. We're asking staffing agencies to give us information on this as well. There's been a coalition convened, and we've got a handful of those that have agreed to supply data. We don't have data that's coming from them just yet. So we'll see, as far as how much that might add, but this is sort of giving a sense, right? How many people are coming into a door asking, I need help finding a job, or they're listening to a presentation about employment opportunities. Out of the people that come to our career center, they get a very specific survey, and we call that an intake. And we're asking about, what their needs are, and we're asking about their barriers. So I'm going to go through those next. So we've been doing this since the spring, since early April. And so if you kind of just look at some demographic factors, we've got nearly 10% that have accessed us and haven't finished high school or obtained a GED yet. Some of those might be students at a high school, but more than likely they're adults that don't have a high school diploma. We also see 15% that have a criminal conviction history. We see 13% that English is not their primary language. I mean, one of the main things that Aaron and Jen are trying to do, and Anna is trying to do with these focused populations, is draw people to come to our career center and increase the awareness of this free and professional service. So
I would venture to say a year ago it would have been 1%. The international population wasn't really coming to the career center, but now that Anna's here, they are. And
we shared this at a meeting this week. So if you were to look at how many new Americans we tracked that we served or we did positive employment outcomes for, at the total people that we touched last year of the workforce board, like with a dedicated person kind of trying to keep up with this that wasn't full-time doing it, it was 13 people last year. And it's 175 to date and climbing, each hour. So it just goes to show when you have dedicated eyes and ears and staff and professionals doing this work, it really does generate results. Moving on to other things that we're seeing, about 14% don't have reliable transportation. 95% of them are currently not receiving unemployment insurance by the time they come into us. So that means that even though most of them might need unemployment insurance addressed, they're not currently receiving it. And other people are coming in to try to claim unemployment insurance, but they're not receiving it yet. So again, people are there for UI issues or UI claims, but they're not currently receiving it. So that means got a lot of people that we cannot say, well, they're getting too much money, they're making more money from UI than they would be working. They're actually not getting UI. Out of the ones that we see about 40% that are already employed, to John's point earlier. Breaking that down, you see that about 27% of them have a full-time job and about 11% claim that they have a part-time job. So I want to talk about those for just a minute. So if you're not working, again, we need to get inside the head of the person that's not working and say, what would it take? Well, why are you not working? How can we help you? So this is what we're seeing, and we shared a little bit of this data. Not as many responses had come in, but we shared a little bit of this data at a board meeting. I don't think it was the last one, it might have been the one before. But we're actually saying that the biggest reason why people are coming is because they've been laid off. That sort of makes sense if you think about an unemployment insurance office and the function of it at the Career Center, right? People are coming to see if they can get benefits, see if they can apply for UI. They've been laid off. Some people habitually come because they habitually, have layoffs that happen with their employer. childcare and transportation don't, show up as the biggest reasons. They are slices, so is COVID concerns and the level of education and professional experience. But if you took, injuries and disabilities and any kind of physical or mental challenges and transportation, you have to add all those up together in the green to see that swap. But there's about 10 to 12% that each of those represent. So that basically just tells us that instead of it being other factors why people are not working, being laid off is the biggest reason why we're seeing people come to the Career Center and seeking services from us. And then moving on to the flip side of the question, what would it take to get you to work? Better pay. We reported this out at the last time. I mean, we have to drill down and have conversations with the individuals on what that means. I mean, is their sense of better pay going from 11 to 15, from 15 to $35 an hour, or $128 an hour? I think that you said in the comments. So what does better pay mean? But a lot of them also want work remote part or some of the time, or a flexible schedule. So we're seeing a lot of demand, I guess you could say, or preference for those things. In addition, we have a lot of people say they need fair treatment from an employer and from employees. But some of the things we might think are the biggest reasons. They want good benefits, they want more education and skills, or transportation, stable housing are issues for them. Those are actually some of the smaller reasons that they claim it would take for them to get back to work. And then we recently came across some data here showing workforce participation in our region. And so this is displaying on a couple of different sources. There's a KY stats. And you've heard us talk about that in the past. This is one of the state databases that we have, but the data kind of lags. And then there's another tool called Jobs EQ, and that's the one when you hear about there's 6,000 or 8,000 jobs in the region, that's the tool that's being used to pull those numbers. So you can see a county by county breakout where we are averaging in the gold there as far as our total population of people, over 300,000 people in our region, and how many people are employed. And then, looking at what our employment rates are versus unemployment rates. You hear unemployment is pretty low, but you look at the labor force as a part of the population as one part, and then another system that's not KY stats, that Jobs EQ actually puts it a little bit closer to 60%. So let's just, use that one for a minute. I mean, we're pretty much looking at the state average in our region. We're right there, 59.9 versus 59.2. But the national average is 63. And so there's only one county in our region that is hitting that mark and one that is close to it. And then everybody else is pretty far below it. So if we realize this information now, it leads us to what we need to be focusing on next, which is those nine counties where they're not even hitting the national or state average. Because we know that if we can get those counties there, it adds, I think, another 13,000 people into the workforce. And so again, looking at all these dynamics, we know people have issues, we know they have barriers. We know people can't even come to us to fill out the survey, right? So there could be an uneven distribution. If you don't have transportation or childcare, you didn't make it into the Career Center to even fill out the survey. But if you got there, we could come to you and collect this information. If our partners could collect it, we'd have a better sense, because I know employers, you guys see people claim certain things, but you also have walk-offs, no calls, no shows. Well, that's not that may not be because of childcare, transportation, that could be work ethic, right? So we've got bigger things to try to get after, and that's leading us to our next point. So you've heard us talk about what we're doing with our outreach efforts, how we're trying to improve the customer service experience and collaboration with partners and getting data from job seekers. Now, what we want to talk about is this dedicated position. I'll turn it back over to John.
Yeah, and we are way ahead of schedule, so we're in good shape. So again, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we've had this workforce participation working group started in December, and we're going to keep that going through the end of this month, at least. Again, informal, periodic, but the idea is that, we're shooting to hire somebody. There's money on the table to hire somebody, and that hiring a full-time dedicated workforce participation lead, which is the goal, is an opportunity to evolve this from a part-time effort to a full-time effort. And so When we go to the full-time effort, we're just going to call it a task force. And hopefully we can get this task force up and running this September. And there's definitely enough money for on the table for 12 months and maybe beyond for this position. Right now, there's $80,000 on the table. 50,000 of it is coming through a economic development grant that Western was able to secure. The city of Bowling Green and Warren County are have each committed 20,000. Tomorrow, when I meet with the Leos, I'm going to show them this same slide, but if other counties want to contribute towards this, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to contribute. But this task force is going to focus on the whole region. I mean, that's the commitment. It's going to be regionally focused because the data is telling us that Warren County's workforce participation rate's just fine. It is exceeding the national average. It's the other 9 counties in our region that are below the national average. If we can figure out how to get every county in South Central Kentucky up to the national average, it adds 13,000 people into the labor force. We're trying to fill 8,000 open jobs. We can get 13. We can come up with we could get 13,000 more folks in if we got to get them off the sidelines and into onto the playing field, into the game. And so we've got to make this has got to be regional in nature. Let's build again. The workforce participation lead. I mean, again, braided funding, and really what we're looking to do. This person's really there's going to be a large research aspect of an academic aspect of what this person's going to do, because we really need to kind of take this very complex problem that is workforce participation and start to break it down into kind of solvable chunks and try to figure some of this out. And so we got to look at root causes, human behavior. We've got to look at, but we've also got to look at what is this labor force crisis going to mean in terms of, how is it going to accelerate robotics or artificial intelligence technology coming into the region? What does that mean? What does the Ford plant and the Envision plant mean? I mean, we think we know, but I think there's still a lot of study that's got to go on around them. So anyway, that's kind of what the person's going to be charged with trying to figure out. Let's go forward a slide, Brian. Here's how I think. I mean, this is how I'm thinking about it, right? I mean, so the workforce participation lead is going to work for the board. Again, they're going to try to start identifying root causes. We're going to form some subcommittee. I'll get into the subcommittees in a second. Let's build one more. I think there's something. There we go. Okay, so again, this is a very dynamic, complex, convoluted problem set. And we're certainly not going to solve all of it. We just got to figure out what we can solve and do the research, do the homework, and then energize our community to help solve it, because this isn't going to get solved by Washington, D.C. It's not going to get solved by Frankfurt. It's only going to get solved if we, as a region, roll up our sleeves and solve it. So, the way I'm thinking about this is we'll our board, we have committees on our board. We have an audit committee, a governance committee. We have committees. And so I'm thinking that we need to form a kind of a workforce participation committee made up of 3 to 5 folks. Some of them could be board members, but our committees can also include folks that are not on the board. They could be outside experts that we could bring in. But that committee, and I've kind of got a little bit of language on the right side, is just there to kind of periodically meet and provide some guidance and shape and direction to the things that we're looking at for workforce participation, the things that we're going to study. And then from there, I think, as we kind of figure out what are those solvable chunks, what are those things that we think we need to tackle, those can become subcommittees. And there's just some examples. I'm not saying this is what we're going to do. I don't know what we're going to do, but I think we could start to form subcommittees. We could have a data subcommittee, and we could have folks. We do pretty good at data in-house, but there's also some other data folks in our community that are really good. We could have an EV battery subcommittee. To study the impacts of the Ford plant and the Envision plant. What are the downstream effects on the other industries, or what does it mean? What does it mean for what does it mean in terms of transit and how people are going to move about? What does it mean in our education institutions? How do they need to adjust? So, another possible subcommittee is like, hey, listen, we know if Hart County's, let's say their workforce participation rate, I don't remember what it was, but let's say it was 58%, and we want to get them to 63%. And to get Hart County from 58% to 63% workforce participation means they need to put 1,700 people back into the workforce. Well, let's get a subcommittee made up of Hart County folks and figure out how do we add 1,700, right? I mean, that's something we might be able to look at doing. Anyway, that's kind of the gist of how we're thinking about this. And I'll just, my last comment on this, if you haven't, this is all going to house just a block away in the WKU Innovation Campus, which is a collaborative workspace, which invites anybody and everybody to come in and participate. There's just a collaborative spirit to that space. And so by being in that space, by being in just kind of being in a campus space, it's going to invite in expertise. I mean, we can tap into, well, anybody, we can tap in, folks from the community can come in, we can tap into interns, we can tap into grad students, we can, if there's a study that we think is way above what we can do, then we can start to have conversations with Western and other educational institutions about commissioning a study on something in particular. So, I mean, I think it's kind of the right space to do something really innovative and really outside of the box, because it just invites in it invites in a lot of folks to contribute and provide expertise. And I think that this subject is, there's going to be a lot of people that want to participate in this. They're going to want to get in and contribute. So it's kind of a pretty exciting way ahead as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, I think that's all I've got on this.
Yeah,
it is all I got on this. So this is a good point to stop and field questions, commentary, concerns. Any questions about the data that Brian went through or this way ahead?
Hey, John, this is Rebecca. With your hiring this person, will there be some quarterly goals that might be set? Maybe the first quarter, they're just setting, those things that they can finish throughout the rest of the year, that you would be bringing back to this group and other groups of the progress that we're making in this, since this is extremely important to the success of us bringing people to work at these companies or any of the companies. It seems to me we'd have some benchmarks or some goals for this person on a quarterly or semi-annual basis.
Yeah, Rebecca, yes, I think definitely. That's I think that, the idea of creating a special workforce participation committee is to get those 3 to 5 people. Maybe it's a little bit more, but get everybody together. Kind of what are those benchmarks? What are those goals? And help us figure out what's the right direction. I think there's going to be more questions and problem statements to solve than we can possibly tackle. And so I think that group has got to be a sounding board so that we can prioritize the work and figure out, okay, what if we've got 10 things that we could potentially go after, there's realistically, it might only be set, 4 of those that we need, that we can do. Well, what are those 4? How do we prioritize that? And then what are the benchmarks or goals that we set against those 4? So yes, I think absolutely.
John, I think that you just made a good point about all of the things that this person in the group would be looking at, which behooves us that during this year period, is as we are successful, how are we going to raise the money again to continue this project that you've put together that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so the good news is that Western Kentucky University EDA grant, they wrote it for $50,000 and they received it. They received the $50,000 for five consecutive years. So I mean, there is there's a $50,000 pot of money that's out there for 5 consecutive years. We'd still have to, we'd have to get financial commitments from other sources to piece together what we need. But I mean, 50 gets us halfway there on this one position.
John,
Sir.
Mike Hughes, I sense in talking to people in my community and other places, and over time, that people correlate entirely how our economy is doing sometimes, just the general layman, by the unemployment rate. And they don't see the linear relationship between the unemployment rate and the workforce participation rate. And if it's only linear, we haven't really improved, have we? You know what I'm saying? There needs to be a discrepancy there and a positive movement. And I know you guys are working toward that. And I really see this as a big positive. But in some way during this board, and I don't know how to do it. I'm giving you a solution without a way to get there. But maybe to educate the public on that correlation in some way, where they don't just depend on the unemployment number when they see it, because that number is floated around all the time arbitrarily without the workforce participation rate being maybe included in that number in some way.
That's a great point. You're exactly right. I mean, the unemployment rate really is kind of a false flag. I mean, if you rest on that, you're really missing a lot. You're missing the big picture if you rest on it. And unfortunately, it's become such a popular number to report on. I mean, everybody's kind of familiar with it, but you miss the mark if you rest on it. And I'll just a little side comment. Our funding through Department of Labor is based on a formula. I mean, so every year Congress apportions money, every state gets money based on a formula, and then each region in the state like ours gets our percentage, our piece of that money based on a formula. And that formula, the formula is really hard to describe. It's a crazy formula, but what's weighted very heavily in that formula is unemployment rates and economic opportunity. So if you're in Eastern Kentucky where you have high unemployment and you have in the economy and you have a struggling economy, you're going to get more money based on the formula. If you're in an area like South Central Kentucky where we have a thriving economy and we have low unemployment, we're going to get less. The cruel irony in all this that's going on right now is all this economic development and all this success that we're having in South Central Kentucky. The cruel irony is over time, we're going to get less and less money based on the formula. And we've got to figure out how to be smarter and stretch and do more with less as we go. I mean, that's so anyway, that's a sidebar. I'm venting a little bit, but you're exactly right. I mean, the unemployment rate is a bit of a, it doesn't paint the full picture. We put a little bit too much weight on what that means.
Hey, John, this is Chris Bucks. I agree wholeheartedly that is the case. And I know that every time we talk about unemployment rate and we shift the gears towards talking about employment participation in our state, one of the things that we have to look pretty closely at is among those that are choosing not to work, how many of them are actually working. For example, they are working on a farm or working in a small business or a cash business. That's a popular occupation in our region, and so that has to be considered. And then there are others that are have a working spouse and perhaps a stay-at-home parent doing homeschooling, those types of things, that have no intention of working. So I suspect that we are our numbers would differ there than what we see across the state and nationally too for employment participation, those that actually are working and those that don't want to go to work because they have other priorities. It's hard to get that data, but it's important that we have it as well.
I agree wholeheartedly. You know, there are no tools out there that measure the size and scope of the cash economy. And there are no tools out there right now that measure the gig economy. I mean, we know people in this region are working remotely for companies outside the region, but we don't, there's no jobs EQ or KY stats or other tool that tells us the size and scope of that. For all we know, 10% of the folks in Hart County are working for companies outside of the state. They're just working remotely. We can't see it. We can't measure it. We don't know. But we desperately would like to know, and if there's a way we could figure it out, it would certainly help us. It would certainly help us. You know, understanding the scope of the problem helps you figure out how to the solutions you need to put in place.
And I'll add one thing that we hope it's conveyed in this meeting and on this topic, but when you think about your responsibility as board members to help oversee us as an organization, that WIOA general fund, that adult dislocated worker and youth funding, that's really all we have to stay. That's the only lane we really have to stay in if we wanted to. That's all you have to help steward with us. And you saw Holland explain how we had the NDWG funds, which actually were exceedingly more than even just the regular state funds were, right? So that alone doubles or more than doubles our capacity to serve people. Now you're talking about how, well, those don't get it all done fast enough to get people working. I mean, it's wonderful to put 100 people through training and to say that 45 or more of them, you know, this year at 70% hopefully are gonna be working and employed. But like that's out of 100 people that we put like heavy serious funds into. Like, what about the person that just needs things like paid for one time, right? Like a pair of shoes or work attire or some reimbursement on travel. We have the capability of doing that as well. We haven't traditionally used the money in those ways. We've used it on some of the more expensive things, I guess you could say. So we know there's flexibility even in how we can use our WIOA funds to serve more people, right? But we also know that sometimes you can't throw money at problems. We just have to work with partners to see how we can just inform people that they've probably got bad ideas, bad information, misinformation, and we can tell them how great you are as an employer, how wonderful it is to make the effort to try to work, maybe efforts that's going to provide transportation for them. I mean, I was in a meeting with Chad with Goodwill this week. I mean, he's got his eye on that ball of trying to see where Goodwill can jump in and help tackle some of the transportation woes we have in the area. So, I mean, once we know these things happen and they're built, we can build it today. How do we get the word out to the people? So we feel like having more of a dedicated position is going to help us understand that and continue to use our reach and impact. But we have a lot more reach and impact than just stewarding the WIOA funds. And again, I hope that comes across.
All right, anybody else?
Any comments from the public that are not board members? Okay, well, we promised to end on time, but we're doing even better than that. So.
All right, Trevor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, okay.
No
I'll
further
close it
questions.
out. Thank you all very much. And as the previous slide showed, our next meeting is scheduled for October 13th, 8:30. It'll be here before you know it. Thank you all so much for your time and attention and great discussion, and to the board, the staff, for all the work that they're doing. I know it's difficult work, but as you can see, they're doing a fabulous job. So hope you'll have a great day. And if there's no further business, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a great day.